response video to Jarhead6, and I'm not quite sure who he's addressing on some of these YouTube things, but YouTube is a forum for communication in a lot of stuff, and when we talk about the survivalist, the prepper, the armed self-defender type stuff, obviously people have different opinions, and other people will substantiate their opinions with whatever their background might be, or their base of knowledge might be. Now, there are going to be some people like myself who have spent a fair amount of time, money, and effort in gaining a particular base of knowledge. Other people, they've had a career path which gave them a particular base of knowledge. My base of knowledge was that I had a lot of that high-speed, low-drag training. I had a lot of that, I trained with a lot of that stuff, but I didn't really have as much, real-world, foreign country, shoot-'em-up experiences, let's say you did. On the other hand, pretty early in the game, I was getting instructor certifications with NRA and all that kind of stuff, early 90s, I think. And it was difficult for me to have a lot of credibility with a certain level of people, because there was always some guy who would tell him he was a Green Beret or Navy SEAL that was also giving classes. And a lot of what happened over the years is those guys fell by the wayside because they were full of shit. Or you would see them writing, and you wouldn't really see where they were in person, because somebody would call them out. Nowadays, it's just a hell of a lot harder for the liars to function. It really is. It's a lot harder for them to function. And the other thing is that whether or not somebody was in real world or not so real world, or like myself, I did a lot of training and then didn't do a lot of stuff in there. But I did pass a lot of my training on to other people who have been very successful with it. And one of the things that I'm going to see, especially whether or not I'm a gear snob or not, is there are people, even among professionals, who would make decisions which will make themselves far less effective, whether it's in a job market, and I'm not saying the employment market, I'm saying in a job market. Okay, I see this with guys who do the work that I do now in the civilian world. I do handyman and maintenance work. Okay, that's a lot of what I do. I've made a career transition. There's a lot of has-been assholes who do nothing but sit on their couch, collect a fucking government disability check, and talk about what they did in their fucking heyday, and they were special this and special that and deployed here and there, and made $500 a day in Iraq working for Blackwater or whatever. And what are they doing now? I mean, come on. I've seen it. There's a lot of these guys cannot make the transition to civilian life, or if they did make a transition to civilian life, they're still on the government tit one way or another. And that's one of the ways I separate the real from the bullshit on, even in the Patriot movement stuff. Okay, what does this guy really do for a living? And I didn't learn that so much from the ex-government guys. I learned that from John Trotman out of Militia, Montana. He used to write a blog, and he used to write a thing. It was actually paper you'd get in the mail. You'd get a newsletter, get in the mail. And one of the things he said always look out for was those people who they really couldn't live without the government check. Now, when it comes to whether or not somebody's combat effective in defensive situations, what it really boils down to is priorities. And I'm not so much going to talk about guns and gear people, but I'm going to talk about anything. I'm going to talk about whether it's power tools. Okay, I've hired guys to work with me on jobs. I would pay them at the end of the day. And these are Americans who would talk about Mexicans taking all the work. Oh, Mexicans are taking all the jobs. And we go to neighborhoods where the preference is for English-speaking, English-speaking people who will do the job and be able to communicate with the people. And when we get paid, and I'll tell you right now, I don't pay anybody minimum wage. I pay better than that. And I pay what a lot of people wish they could make, but because of the irregular nature of the work, it's the way it goes. How many of these guys, as soon as they got some money in their pocket, got to go grab, got to stop at the convenience store, grab a six-pack and some smokes, and they don't even own a car. I'm picking them up and dropping them off from work. And when they work for me, they'll work well because they know that I pay a hell of a lot more than any of the other people who do temporary short-term labor. And it's pack of smokes and got to get something to drink and got to get a pack of smokes and on a job site, the guy's got to have his Red Bull. That's $2.50 a can. And I tell him, listen, why don't we go to the dollar store, get some dollar store version. I like the real one. I got to have my Rockstar. I got to have my Red Bull. I want the real thing. Okay, whatever. Okay, live it up for a while. If somebody like that wants to transition into being, self-defense armed, I'm not even going to bring it up. Okay, I'm not even going to bring it up. Get a nice knife. Learn some martial arts or something like that. Show some discipline. Some discipline and consistency in something, and then maybe we would look at something on that. But pushing guns on everybody. I used to work at a gun shop, and in my years of working at a gun shop, do I think the laws are bullshit? Yeah. Would I break the law, or have I broken gun laws? Yeah, I think those are bullshit. I think a lot of them are bullshit. I think a lot of the gun laws are actually there for legitimate reasons, but they're enforced badly. They're enforced very inconsistently, and they're enforced for political reasons. On the other hand, one of the reasons that I never went to jail for being an accessory to a violent crime and selling guns, dealing guns for a long time, I was. And one of the reasons I never went to jail for being an accessory to a violent crime was I was pretty good at picking who I would do business with. When I was giving shooting lessons, when I was an NRA instructor, okay, no student of mine ever went out and did some bad shit. Now, I can tell you that a lot of the law enforcement instructors who would talk down at me, who would say bad things about me, they can't say the same thing about their classmates or their students. They cannot say that their students have never ever done a bad incident, or their classmates in many cases. They can't say that. And I rub their noses in it. Every time I read about one of these accidental shootings by a cop or a bad shoot or something like that, I'm like, yeah, I rub their noses in it because they were the people that destroyed my career. And they did it out of spite. But the fact is that if you're not part of the club, one of the ways that you can really have a legacy that passes on to the right kinds of people is to have higher levels, higher standards of competence, higher standards of knowledge. Higher standards of gear is not as hard as your military career was. You made a decision to join the Marine Corps. I think, I don't know if your MOS was voluntary or if you went open contract. But, you joined, you got a lot of training, you did all that kind of stuff. There's no reason to go bullshit gear on that unless you have made a conscious decision on your priorities to be a certain way. And when I see that somebody is not making certain things to be a priority, okay, if somebody carries a Jennings 22 or 25, okay, I'm going to say, okay, the weapons situation is probably not a priority in their life. I would also say I don't believe they're so poor they couldn't afford something better. Okay, I just don't believe it. And I don't believe that they're incapable of working. Because one of the reasons why I got out of just hooking people up with guns, because I started to realize, and it was a friend of mine I was in a business with, and there were guys that we had kind of cut real good deals. We're kind of giving somebody a gun to hold, and we'd know the guy over the years, and he shows up with a better car, and he gets married, and he's buying a house, this and that, and it's like, oh, by the way, what about that, that pistol? You still got that? Oh yeah, I still got that. Did you buy anything? You know, you ever buy any ammo? Did you ever get any other prepper stuff? No. Well, I couldn't afford it. Okay. Well, we know how that goes. And when it comes down to priorities, we know that person's priority just wasn't with that stuff. Okay? So if they're spending a lot of time watching Alex Jones, if they're spending a lot of time, it's easy to sit in a chair and go over conspiracy theories. It's really easy. And part of the whole thing with this patriot movement type stuff, or the libertarian movement type stuff, is getting up and being self-sufficient and going out and having to earn that extra $10,000 in a year to afford, proper equipment, proper stuff, because it's not that universal. Okay, you're going to beat your head against the wall trying to convince everybody to think your way, when you and everybody else around you is going to be better off just figuring out, who the people are that are worth your effort, and in putting your effort into those people that you've figured out really are worth it. And if they haven't made realistic, conscious decisions in managing their life and their finances, and again, you could visit them. You could visit these guys. Look around a trash can. Oh, wow. Name brand soft drinks, not generics. Got weed. Got weed in the house. Oh, your girlfriend's got 3 cats. How much food do you think those fucking cats eat? Look at the rims on a car. Oh, yeah, nice rims on a car, man. Nice leather jacket. Where'd you get that? Wilson's? Yeah, those are about $250, aren't they? You can figure these things out with these guys. And so if they got bullshit guns and gear and they're saying, me too, that's where, no, sometimes it takes a little bit of sarcasm. Sometimes it takes a little calling them out. And, it's okay for them to be me too, but when they start getting into the situation where, they kind of want to be taken seriously in something, that's when people whose job it is to some degree is going to look at that and say, okay, where's he at? Where are they really at? Oh, no. And shitty gear is usually an indication that it's just not somebody's priority in life. And so they are going to, if they show up to the certain campfire, they show up to a certain circle, somebody's going to probably let them know that, hey, man, you're not at this level. And I'm not going to say that means that they shouldn't have any Second Amendment rights. I'm not going to say that. But I'm going to say that maybe their expression of their Second Amendment rights probably ought to just be back at the shotgun in the granddad's closet level and carrying a knife, or maybe maybe they're not quite at the level where they're competent to be handling the firearm as their defensive weapon. Maybe they got to go with the pepper spray or something like that, or think about what some of the other roles are in defensive situations. Not everybody's going to be the warrior. And I'm not going to say that means that somebody's Second Amendment rights should be denied to them, but there's a certain level where you need to understand that it's more than just emotional, oh, I'm responsible and I passed a background check. There's a certain level when you're going to demonstrate a realistic decision-making process and competence in gear choices, and those do matter.